Hi, we're back on the emotional series today, and we're talking about a heavy one. It's called grief.
And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because it's a conversation that I really want to engage in so we can change the conversation around grief. Grief is really considered a process that is involved with many emotions. From my personal experience, I just was hit with grief in such an intense way, and I was never able to prepare for it. I think the misconception is that people think that there is a process to it and you're going to go through these specific stages, but there's no order to it. It's unique for everyone, and I think that's something that people need to understand.
Right. I do agree with that. There's books that say here are the 7 phases or the 10 phases of grief. And it's like, this is when you go through it, and this is what you should experience, and this is how you should come out of it, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, just think about your own experience with it coming out of the loss of your friend.
I don't think there's any way, like maybe intellectually, that I could see someone thinking, oh, they go through a specific stage, but emotionally, you're going to such depths of emotion that there's no way that it could be planned. You're just experiencing these waves as they happen. I really want to talk about three elements of grief. And one of the elements is loss. And I think people are like, well, that's obvious, there's a loss. But it goes beyond that loss. I'm talking about loss of what could have been, loss what you knew, loss of maybe what you thought you knew but didn't. And that's kind of with our experience with the loss of my friend. There was a lot of things that I thought I knew and had understanding, but I didn't at all.
And then that, I think, also brought some, and the emotion of guilt and that mixed into the grief that kind of compounded everything.
Yeah, and I stayed stuck with that. That was really an emotion that I had to work through and let go. Another element that, I really experienced was when you're talking about longing. And it's really longing for a connection, longing for meaning after loss. And the connection piece, I think, is really hard. Grief is such a lonely place anyway, and our society is so uncomfortable with this conversation that we avoid. And we're avoiding the people that are at the loneliest point in their life. And I think I have just learned, I used to be one to avoid. I thought it was uncomfortable. I thought the conversation was hard. It's not hard at all because you don't have to fix anything. You just have to have capacity to show up and listen to someone and their story.
Yeah. And so the depth, you mentioned the depth of our grief. I think it directly relates back to how deeply you loved. And so I mean,
And
when we
that's
really care about somebody and we really love somebody, like a family member or your best friend since childhood in our situation, it's going to be rough. Like it's going to be dark for a while and it's ugly, but it's just all part of the process.
Well, I do love that you said, that is the beautiful thing of grief. It is a representation of how much we love the person. And when I started to pay attention to that piece, it was, I think, the shift of where I began to start looking for the good and I began to move towards gratitude. But I think one of the other elements that I've experienced is lost. And I think people who are moving through grief, you feel so lost because you literally are reorienting, help me,
Orientating.
there you go, your life in all aspects. And that's emotionally, physically, but also socially.
Right. And so, what is the number one thing that you want to share with the audience of how they can navigate through grief?
I hope one of the things that maybe you'll be open to is opening the space for sadness in your life, the emotion of sadness. It is a universal experience. There's no way we're going to avoid it. And when you open up to it, I believe that there is a beautiful connection that you start experiencing with others. I mean, that's how we learn about life. But I think people that are going through grief, they almost feel angry at the world that they have to educate them on how they're supposed to respond. It's like someone will say, well, tell me what you need. They're in no capacity to tell you what they need. Just show up.
Yeah.
Just show up and
Just
say,
show
I'm
up.
here to listen for you.
Yeah. What if you were able to show up for somebody that needed just someone that was open and willing to hear their story? That could be an amazing thing for somebody right now. And then obviously, you've done some pretty cool talks on grief. You want to share where they can find your TED Talk?
I was asked to do a TED Talk, and the concept of the talk was around taboo. And I chose grief because I do believe in our society right now that we associate grief as taboo, the conversation. I've had some great feedback from my talk. I would encourage you to check it out. I think it's a valuable resource. Their concept around TED Talks is ideas we're spreading. I think this is an idea we're spreading, that we need to change the conversation around grief.
So Google Kelly Pascuzzi TED Talk, and you'll get her full TED Talk right in front of you instantaneously. We'll see you next time.
I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on a grief documentary with a nonprofit here in Kansas City, and that's how important I feel this conversation is to change. So I'll be giving you more updates as we move forward with the production.
Okay. Well, that's a wrap on grief. We'll see you next time on the Emotional Series.